Good evening once again, Jeopardy fans. This is hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel presented by the JeopardyFan.com. As always, I am Andy Saunders, and I will be moderating tonight's discussion. We've got a couple of great contestants, former contestants here with us so far. We're going to be joined by a third in just in a few minutes as well. But currently on your screens, we've got, and I'll introduce you as always in order of when you first appeared. So our first introduction tonight, welcome back to hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel to Pat Kavanaugh. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And our second panelist at the moment, we've got Peter Guekguezian. Thanks for joining us, Peter.
Hey, and thanks for having me.
And also, congratulations on your victories, Peter, recently on the show.
Oh, thank you. It was, I mean, the whole thing is surreal, but having won is even surrealer.
I can certainly imagine. So
I can only imagine also.
Unfortunately, for those of you who don't quite remember, Pat's episode did not go quite as well for her as she would have liked. So so the way, so also at some point in the next few minutes, we should hopefully be joined by Natasha Baker-Bradley as well. She was on last Thursday's game. And yeah, if you've got any comments for the panel, we've got a YouTube chat. You can always leave your comments there. We've also got a hashtag on Twitter, hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. You can leave your comments for our panel there. So my first question for you, I guess for Peter, I'm not quite that familiar with my California geography. Now, is Fresno close enough that you were considered an alternate for your
No, because it's about 200 odd miles north of Los Angeles, of Culver City specifically, and so it's not close enough to be considered an alternate. Like, I have to stay in a hotel.
Okay.
Yeah, the first two times I auditioned for Jeopardy, I was living in the LA area, so if they had called me, I probably would have been an alternate. But this time I just recently moved up to Fresno, so it was a little too far.
Okay. So obviously you started your run back the week prior on the I believe the 16th, if I have my dates remembered correctly.
Yeah,
June?
16th.
So
16th.
Yeah. So what was it like, kind of watching that previous week of 4 shows? How did seeing those games in the audience help prepare you for the experience of being a contestant?
I think, for instance, it was really good, I think, not to have been in the first show or two, because just at the beginning of the day, there's so many nerves. Once you realize that, you can sort of see, like watching on TV, Monday's games are always a bit more free-falling. There's a little more nerves, and by the time you've seen people tape a few, it calms you down. But I think having had to wait till the very last game of the taping day was tough, because by then I was just sort of chomping at the bit to go, and I was, I don't know, I think I was almost over ready, but it didn't seem to have hurt. I will say I'm glad to have seen so many tapings, so many shows being taped before I taped, because it helped work out the nerves for Friday, if not for the next Monday.
Fair. Now, how was it, seeing, I guess Tucker was the returning champion coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how was it seeing that? And then, how was it a relief for you in the bullpen seeing him lose?
Yes and no. I mean, I could tell like a couple of those games had been really close, that he had won, but it was there was a feeling after like the second taping game, like, uh-oh, is this guy gonna just go all the way and run through the whole day of taping? So even though he had some close ones, I think it was still like a bit of relief that okay, he's been vanquished. So we'll have fresher people with less of a run to compete with.
No, I think Pat, kind of on the lines of, is someone going to kind of start going on a bit of a run now? You had, if I'm not mistaken, you kind of watched Michael Bilo run roughshod over everyone from the bullpen.
Yes, it was an astounding week to watch. I was, from that standpoint, glad to be the last show of the week because Michael Bilo was the returning champion, and he, on that Tuesday game, so the second game of the day, what is he, the third or fourth all-time highest?
Single days? Yeah.
Yeah, single day. It was just astounding to watch. A little sad because I had befriended the two people he ran roughshod over, so I felt bad for them, but it was amazing to watch. And then in the Wednesday game, the very next game, so 45 minutes later in the studio, he didn't make it to Final Jeopardy.
Yeah.
So to watch those two things 45 minutes apart was just amazing.
I think that gives you a picture, like sort of perspective on how up in the air the game is before the game starts. I would say for like any of the games I watched and participated in, I just saw the dog come on and then your webcam went out, so I'm assuming those two facts are related. Anyway, any of the games I watched from the bullpen or was a part of, it could have, any of the three contestants could have won any of those games. That's just the nature of the game, with I guess a few exceptions like Ken Jennings or Brad Rutter. Like aside from those sort of like super wonderkins of Jeopardy, it's all the people on the show are talented, fast with the buzzer. I mean, they came on, they were selected because they would perform well on the show. So it's, you never know.
It's going to sound like sour grapes if I say that because I did not win a game, but I agree fully. I mean, it's, are the categories in your wheelhouse? Did you eat too much at lunch or you're feeling sleepy?
Right.
Anything can
Did
sway
you drink
things.
too much coffee beforehand?
Right, exactly.
Or just totally jittery.
Did your flight get in too late the night before?
Yeah.
I'm probably going to say that we're probably going to get back to the word wheelhouse in slightly later on in this panel, but
I didn't mean to preview that, sorry.
probably a good thing that you mentioned that before Natasha arrived. But,
oh, that's just unfortunate.
But, again, it was one of those, but you're absolutely right with, are the categories up your alley? Or, have you been able to figure out the buzzer? There's, so many little things that can go wrong.
Right.
And
I think most impressive are the people who are able to pull themselves out of a rut. I sort of started my game back on my heels, and I was never really a factor after that, which was unfortunate. But so, people who have the resilience are in some ways more amazing than those who completely dominate.
Right, because momentum is such a part of the game. And like when you have it, when you're like just going through all those categories and you seem to be buzzing in at exactly the right times, then you feel like the wind's at your back and you're just sprinting. And then say you like miss a daily double, and then all of a sudden your buzzer game's not on, and then the other people are piling up questions. It can get away from you really fast. So it seems like the fast game when you're watching it, but when you're playing it, it's fast in a different way. It's you can't control it. Right.
Yeah, it's off and running. And then I'm sure that you experience this too. The amount of stuff that you don't remember that happened on stage, like when you watch your episode again, you're like, what?
Yeah.
There were a couple of times in my episode where you're just mashing the buzzer all the time because everybody knows all the answers. And you know, so just reflexively you're mashing the button, even if you don't know the answer. And so then you have this realization, oh no, those are my lights. I have to come up with the answer.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of instances where I didn't know the answer, but I pulled it out. And then at my watch party, I still didn't know the answer. I knew I had answered it correctly, but I didn't know what I was going to say. I know how this ends, except I don't know what I'm going to say.
So kind of spinning back around to pulling yourself out of a rut. Now, Peter, in your second game on last Monday, the daily doubles certainly did not work out in your favor that day.
No, they did not.
Can you kind of, how difficult was it to bet so much on the third daily double that you'd seen? I think you bet 4,800.
Yeah.
After sinking two true daily doubles already.
Well, I mean, I for sure wasn't going to do another true daily double, but there's something about when you get that daily double and you're like, you have sort of like a split second to breathe, and then you're like, okay, maybe this is my chance to come back. And it just depends on, I guess, what type of gambler you are. Like whenever I play cards, when I'm playing poker, I bet a little eagerly, and so in Jeopardy, in poker and in Jeopardy, that doesn't always work well. So I think at that point, I figured if I were going to miss a third daily double, it would not be on just like a small amount, and that I might as well go for the gold. And it didn't work out at all. It was terrible watching me up there on TV, seeing like, oh, this was an answer I should have known. I'm a big fan of the Clash. That was a Kazbah question, right?
Yes, yes.
I believe. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the Clash. I like to think I know some stuff about geography in the Middle East, and I was just sort of shell-shocked, and I couldn't come up with the right answer, and I came up with a sort of similar sounding word that I think Qibla, which is the direction you're supposed to pray in Islam, so it's just completely, just couldn't get the right word at all. So it was disappointing.
But your confidence, though, your willingness to risk that was so, it was great to watch. And not in a schadenfreude way. Not in a, oh, wow, look, he's going to lose it again. Not at all.
But, I mean, I think the best part of that was that you actually won the game.
Yeah, I was astounded. Like, if my mic had been on for like 5 minutes after the game, it was just like dropping F-bombs. Just like, how did I do that? How did I throw away so much money on the daily doubles and still eke out a win?
Did Alex have anything to say about that post game?
I think he was, I mean, he never loses his cool, but I think inside he was about as stunned as everyone else at that crazy game. But, you know, he, whenever you talk to Alex, whether it's on the interviews or whether it's the post-game chat, he's very good at sort of anchoring you and getting you to calm down, which is why, I mean, it's good because you don't want people flailing out there on air. You want people contestants to be sort of comfortable and at ease, and he was really good at that. So he sort of like, I mean, he was able to put us at ease after like that crazy finish to a really remarkable game.
Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, I mean, obviously, it must have felt kind of disappointing for Jeremy, though, to have been at least, you know.
Yeah.
How did he kind of take it in the moment?
I think he was just as shocked as I was. I think he had figured that I mean, here his opponent is losing all this money. Jeremy himself, like he played a pretty good game. He answered a lot of questions. He had, even though he missed a couple and he had gotten back down, he had it was almost a runaway by Final Jeopardy, and I think he was shocked that he lost too. And I mean, he seemed like a good sport. I mean, honestly, pretty much everyone I met on both the weeks I was taping seemed like a good sport. But and then I think he just, well, I didn't see him after that because I had to run back to the dressing room, and then I was back up on stage. But I think just like anyone who doesn't end up winning on Jeopardy, you just, or when you do eventually lose on Jeopardy, you're like, hey, who cares? I was on Jeopardy. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
You know.
Peter, did you tape over consecutive days, or was there a week in between?
There was a week in between, and I don't think that helped my nerves.
I would imagine.
Yeah, so I was the last, I had the last show of the week, taping of the week, and I won that, and then so I had to wait like about 5 days, and I drove down from Fresno. I didn't fly in. I didn't have them fly me in. I just drove down. And that morning, I remember I was sort of nervous because here I'm the returning champ. Everyone's gunning for me, but I've only won one game. And I just, I don't want to come off as like the cocky returning champ, especially because I've only won one. But I don't want to seem aloof, and I drank. Basically, the bottom line is I drank way too much coffee in the green room that morning, and I was just, the jitters came out on stage, and somehow I got through that episode, and then by the time the next episode was being taped, I just calmed down completely. It was a lot of jitters, a lot of nerves on that Monday episode.
I have a complete conjecture, not supported by evidence whatsoever, that Monday is the day that returning champs lose the most frequently because of that first show of the day factor. It feels more up for grabs, I think.
Yeah.
Any other time of the day, you're coming off, the returning champ has just played a game and so is in fine buzzer form.
Right. Yeah, going into the buzzer cold is difficult. And that's why I think on any other game but Monday, like you're saying, that the returning champ does have an advantage because they're not going cold on the buzzer. And they do give you plenty of time pre-taping to practice, but it's just not the same as when you're on the actual taping.
Now, in your second week, there seemed to be a lot of flowers in the hair of some of your competitors. Is there a story behind that?
No, just two of them showed up with the flower in their hair, and because I mean, there's about like 10 plus plus an alternate contestants in the green room. It doesn't seem as significant as when the two people with flowers in their hair are in back-to-back episodes. So I remember like noticing it. It didn't seem like a big deal. And then when the episodes air, everyone on Twitter on Tuesday was like, "Oh my God, why does everyone wear a flower in their hair?" And
is it Flower Week? Did the flower ladies bond in the green room that you noticed, or you were too busy being champion to notice?
No, I'm not sure if they bonded. I talked with Melissa quite a bit. I talked with her and, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. I think Matt. I talked with her and Matt before the show, I think in the lobby of the hotel we were staying, and she seemed like a really cool person. Barb seemed a little zany, but she was really nice. I mean, the thing about other contestants on Jeopardy, it's like we all belong together. We're all a little eccentric. We're all intelligent.
It's a nerd club.
Maybe it's a nerd club, exactly. It's a big, fun nerd club. So no one is really out of their element amongst each other. yeah, I can't say there was anyone I met there that like I took a dislike to or anything like that.
Yeah, I also think that, you know, with very few exceptions, the Jeopardy contestant coordinators do a very good job at picking incredibly great people to be on the show.
Yeah. And when you see an episode, like I saw a lot of comments on Monday's episode, like, where do they find these people? I mean, the thing is, if it were another taping with our same three contestants, it could have been a completely different game. Any one of us on a different show could have done completely differently. Every show, every taping, I think, is its own encapsulated bubble where things can go terribly wrong or terribly right, or however. So,
and it's the piece that it's difficult for the contestant coordinators to see is how is an individual group of three going to play out on a stage. Like, you can have a certain chemistry among the 10 people in the pool for that week, but what's it going to be like when a certain group of three is up there? And that's almost impossible to forecast. So that's part of why it's so great when you get a super competitive game. It's like, how did this magic come together?
And, you know, sometimes the randomness of categories and contestants do not mesh, and you get a game that all the viewers are like, well, where did they get these, you know, people from? Did they pick them up off their street randomly in the morning, or like?
I mean, I will always have sympathy for Jeopardy contestants, having been one, just because, I mean, 12 categories seems like a lot, but in like the great zone of knowledge that we've accumulated by the 21st century, I mean, that could be anything, and it's not inconceivable that, I mean, it could be outside of just anyone's, well, should I say the WH word? Wheelhouse.
Yep.
Natasha's not here yet. It's okay.
Natasha has let me know she is still on her way. Apparently, Miami traffic is. For those of you who are up in Canada, I'm going to compare it to the bus issues that were the transit issues that Ottawa's been having this week. They've closed off a bunch of roads for Canada 150, and it's completely thrown a wrench into the transit system up here, up in Ottawa. So it's been amusing, but
I almost forgot. Happy Canada Day in advance.
Yeah, Happy Canada Day.
Thank you.
Happy 150th birthday. You look great for 150, Andy.
Thank you.
Just wait till you hit about 175. Everything starts going downhill. Trust us.
I mean, I'd say you guys got, you know, well past. I don't know. I would say you got to about 204 before.
Yeah.
We're in a rough phase. We'll get there.
Yeah.
It's growing pains, you know. Once we're done teething, it'll be fine.
Oh, don't even talk to me about teething right now. My 2-year-old's got all 4 molars in, and he's a riot right now.
So, what do you have any plans, if any, yet for your winnings? Like, what big ticket items, or are you just planning on using it to pay off grad school?
Yeah, I mean, some of it will be paying off debt. Some of it will be like responsible investing. I'd like to give, I mean, some of it to charity, like at least a small bit, because I don't know, I've had a lot of people help me out in my time on this earth, that it'd be nice to give some of it back. And then I think I'd like to have a really nice family vacation somewhere, either really interesting or somewhere really relaxing, but somewhere that we wouldn't just go and like just have a nice vacation. But as far as big ticket items, maybe new headphones, because these, if you'll see, like the little earpieces have fallen off. So yeah, but other than that, that's about it. We like to travel, so we'll be doing some of that.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
What did you tell them at your audition that you were going to do with the money?
Oh, I think I said I was going to do like a road trip of the 50 states, knowing that, I mean, that's something I would love to do someday when my child and other children are a little older. I've always wanted to do that, but at this point, I don't think we can do a road trip across the continent with a 2-year-old. The previous 2 times, I had said I would fly my grandmother back to where she grew up in Beirut, and I'm still thinking about that, but I don't know how she would handle that right now, because she's in her 80s. But I've always wanted to take her back there, because she hasn't. I don't think she's been back to Lebanon in decades. I don't know if right now is a great time to go there, but someday, hopefully.
Now, I mean, in terms of road trips, I know that one thing I actually kind of discovered, a site I discovered recently, was roadtrip.com, which has a whole bunch of various, basically all the sort of random fun things that each, small town kind of has for tourists. And so just a whole bunch of things like that, like, that might be interesting for people to take a look at if they're going around all 50 states, or even 2 or 3. So So let's see, what else can I ask? As far as I know, yes, I mentioned that Natasha is stuck in Miami traffic. She's trying to make it back here in time for panel. What's the feeling like when you've been champ for a couple of games? Do you have the sense while you're playing that this can't go on forever, or is it still like, well, I could, that feeling of, well, maybe I can be the next Ken Jennings, I guess?
I mean, after like playing a single game, I was, even after having won it, I was pretty sure like I'm not going to be the next Ken Jennings. It's crazy, it's insane. And then the thing is, after a few games, you start to get tired. Your buzzer game slips a little, and I mean, it's always in the back of your head. Like, maybe if I do well enough, I can be on Tournament of Champions, and maybe if these next categories are all in my favor, I can win another. But like, especially after my second game, I was well aware that any game could be my last. And I mean, my 4th game was, and I had a very worthy opponent, and it was close. It was actually, the game I lost was the one that I had the highest total at the end, which is a little bittersweet. But it's just it's just great to have been on, and to have won 3 times is just 3 cherries on top, I guess.
So we've got a comment on the hashtag on Twitter from Jessica Cantrell, and she has noticed that there has been a slight cameo in my own video feed a couple of times through the taping, and she has asked, "What dog, Andy?" And I'm not quite sure if I can make an attempt. There we go.
There we go.
There we go, and we have
we're getting some side eye there. Dog is not happy.
Dog is like, why am I in the camera shot?
Yeah. Why are my ears not being scratched? And why am I on?
Yeah.
There we go. No, she's happier.
Oh, there we go.
Oh.
And yes, this is Juno. This is actually not her first appearance on hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. If you remember the tournament of panelists from 2 years ago, there was a photograph of a Boston Terrier lying there, and I believe the favorite caption of that time was like some joke about it not being categories but dogagories, and that photograph was of Juno. So. So that answers the question of what dog, Andy. Was there any during your kind of first 4 games in the audience before you got to tape? Was there anything that you'd seen, that came up in any of those games that you were like, I wish that had been in one of my games?
There was a category on Racine.
Yes.
The 17th century French playwright, and everyone else was groaning, and I was like, oh, I wish I had that, because they actually made us read Racine at our school. So I was like, oh man, I could have cleaned up in that category. And then the final Jeopardy about the Mediterranean Sea, I forget exactly. I think it had to do with Corsica and Sardinia, but I remember I was very miffed at not getting that one, because it was like, oh, that would have been an easy one for me.
Do you remember anything in particular from back when you taped, Pat, on the same question?
Yeah, there were a couple of categories that I wish I had had. There was the ubiquitous Shakespeare category, which didn't show up in my show, but in one before us. I think I knew all of the Final Jeopardies that I had witnessed before my own. I got my own correct also, but it was a little more of a pull. And I forget what else. Mostly the Shakespeare. There were a couple of really good geography ones, although my episode had a good geography category too. Not that I was able to ring in at any of them, but but there it is.
So
you a geography fan, Pat?
Yes. Yeah, it's
awesome. I mean, I like geography too, is what I could have said. Yeah.
Yes.
I always enjoy those categories, and I always hoped that if I were on Jeopardy someday, like before that I would get just like a board of geography categories, and of course that didn't happen.
No, never does. But the geography category on my episode was in double Jeopardy round, and I had already been sort of demoralized from the single Jeopardy round, so my confidence wasn't where it could be. But oh well.
So in terms of the buzzer, Peter, would you say you kind of worked off the lights more or Alex's voice more?
I would say I worked off the lights more, I think. But I can't say I consistently stuck to one strategy, because I mean, I'm a little more visual than I am auditory. But sometimes, if I was following the lights and I was either locked out or just a second too late, I would try to switch it up and see if Alex's voice would be a better cue. Okay. But I think I tended more towards the lights.
Do you recall, roughly, was there in any of your shows, and I should know this because it was just last week, but I don't, I'm sorry, a significant age range in the contestants? Because I think that makes a difference.
In I think 3 of the games I was in, there was someone who was a little older, had a little more wisdom, experience of life, and
slower.
And the thing is, I'm not sure how much it affects people. I know I think the contestant I played against in the 3rd game, Melissa, had a small child of her own, so that can definitely, like, have that lack of sleep of being a parent of a small child, I think, can hurt you too. And but you never know. I mean, when you're going to be called, so you just have to be like ready to be mentally sharp whenever you are. I was when I got the call, like, not only did I have a 2-year-old, but I was busy writing my dissertation and just like staying up late nights, and I just moved to a new house, and I felt like I wasn't in the greatest mind, like that my mind wasn't as sharp as it could have been. And then I come out on Jeopardy, and it's like, it's almost like none of that matters. I mean, yeah. So I don't feel like I was fatigued or like searching for answers too much. Although I would say, like, as a multi-game player, like, you definitely get fatigued between shows. So I think that might be the most impressive thing for me, of people who've won like 6, 7, 8 games. The fact like that you can go for like a whole day of taping and win, because you get sort of burnt out. Like by the third game, I was definitely tired. You saw the week before with Tucker. He lost on Wednesday, and he, I think, was pretty, I'm going to go for the pun, he was pretty tuckered out by then. Sorry, everyone, Roan. And it's just, hi, Natasha.
Hi, sorry.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi.
Yeah. So yes, welcome to Hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, Natasha, and
Thank you.
glad you were able to join us. It sounds like Miami traffic was pretty bad. We were comparing it to the Ottawa bus system actually earlier. It was apparently things have been pretty bad in Ottawa this week in terms of the buses. They've closed a bunch of roads. So
Okay. There's no excuse for this. It's just Miami being Miami.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Natasha, as a Chicago Cubs fan, I have to thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Could you come back?
That's unfortunately not the way it works. I can only do it one team at a time.
So which team is kind of in line this year?
Well, I made a joke on air that got cut out. I said that if the Dodgers want me, they know where to find me. But I didn't go to Dodgers Stadium while I was there, so I don't think the power's been bestowed. So, but
yeah,
I'm just putting it out there now.
As a Giants fan.
I haven't been, so I have a goal to go to all the stadiums, and I've only been to like 5, so I still have a lot of way to go. The Giants is one of them.
Yeah, they've got a beautiful, I mean, baseball stadium. That's an awesome goal, by the way. I haven't told you that. That was really cool.
Thank you. What did I miss? Yeah, what were you
what did you miss? Oh, I mean, we've talked about a whole bunch of things. Well, probably let's actually keep on that interview subject, actually, because that's a good spot to jump into. But did Alex actually talk about what you thought he'd talk about? Like, did you expect him to bring up the baseball stadiums, Natasha, and Peter as well for your interviews?
Yeah, so the way that it worked for me is that, we had submitted 5 stories, but then by the time I showed up, they had whittled it down to the 3 that they liked. And then they had us rehearse all 3, and they said, which one do you want to choose? And I thought, I should advertise my baseball power. So I decided to go with that one. And then luckily Alex picked that one because I kind of had rehearsed it in my head a little bit.
Yeah, I felt comfortable with the first 3 topics. In the 4th game, I don't know why I put that linguist guide to humor in there. That's just something I've been sort of thinking about in my head for a few years, but like I haven't even written a single word. There's not even a blank Word document with the name on it. And he asked it, and I just kind of blanked, and I was just like sort of flailing up there. I was hoping he'd asked something about like the work I've done on endangered languages, because that's like one of my passions, like in my career. But otherwise, like, I mean, it was like, it was fun to give a shout out to conlanging or language construction, and it was just, I don't know, Alex is good at, I don't know, calming you down and making you able to talk freely and not sort of, because a lot of times, like you notice I'm doing that now, I'm kind of I'll be hemming and hawing, or he's very good at getting the best out of us, I would say.
Well, I would personally say he might be good at that in some instances and not others, because going back now, kind of going back in Natasha's direction, he when I was watching on Thursday, it looked to me like he kind of dug the knife in and then twisted after the Daily Double. So.
Oh yeah, I agree. I tried to say something like, just because I like baseball does not mean I know anything about it. I would also like to say I've talked to a lot of baseball people and they've never heard that word used in that context. So yeah, just putting that out there.
Now, obviously, it was very difficult to recover from that. Now, how was it? I mean, if you could give tips to future contestants on how best to deal with something like that, what might you say?
I mean, you have to try not to let it like interfere with your mind game too much, and then just bounce back from it. Try and keep going. Try and earn some money so that you can make it into Final Jeopardy with some money, and maybe you can do something with that. Yeah, it didn't work for me, but I hope it works for someone. Yeah.
Does it? I mean, I was not in such a situation, but I would think that it helps that the game moves so fast. Like you literally don't have time to dwell on it.
Yeah, it really does. That was the most unexpected thing for me, and maybe I should have expected it, but like you just get up there and play the board, and then the board is gone, and you're like, where did the board go?
Yeah, 22 minutes seems to go by in like 10 minutes.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of moving on, trying to buzz in.
Right. And you have to get your head out of the fact that, oh no, I gave the wrong answer to something in front of millions of people, and you just have to take it sort of with the questions that are coming at you right then.
Yeah. Although, and honestly, and I've watched my episode now twice, and I still can't remember it too well. But I think I got my second Daily Double very shortly after my first one, or really shortly.
Yep.
And so I was kind of frustrated with that second one because I felt like I hadn't earned any money back yet, so I didn't really have that much. I mean, I would have lost it anyway. But I remember when it came up, I'm like, no, I'm not ready for you yet.
As it turns out, I did not have that answer playing along at home either. So on the second Daily Double.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this has been noted. You're in good company in missing that particular word.
Yeah.
Wheelhouse, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Alex Jacob in 2015.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I did have that additional visual clue, but as you guys know, the visual is very far away.
The visual clues are not very helpful.
No. And I feel like the TV viewing audience doesn't realize that, because why would they?
Right.
And so
they get a nice big close-up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That was one of the most unpleasant surprises when I showed up, and I'm like, you want me to see what? From how far away? So.
I was glad they told us to bring an extra pair of glasses or contacts, because if God forbid you break your pair of glasses and that's the only one
oh yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. You're done.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, because I didn't really get to talk to you too much? I remember that one of your boards was logic puzzles, or visual.
Oh yeah.
Were you having trouble seeing that? Because I would have been frustrated with that.
It always took about a second to see what exactly is going on there, and then so you have to figure out what is going on, and then you what you're seeing, and then you have to figure out, well, what's the puzzle. So it took a while, and people would were kind of merciless on that. Like, how did you know that? But I know why, like, it would be hard to get that right, because those questions right, because you have to, like, look at the screen, figure out what images you're seeing, and then figure out what exactly they're trying to tell you, what exactly.
Yeah, no, I imagine that it's very hard to do in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take over hosting duty.
No, please, go on. You're welcome to ask whatever question you'd like.
Okay.
We've actually got some comments on the hashtag Jeopardy Live panel from Jason. I think dogs should vote. I think that's a reply to the cameo from Juno earlier. From Lisa, who is everyone's all-time favorite Cubs player? I'm going to open with when I was younger, I was a second baseman when I played, so I'm going to have to say Ryan Sandberg.
Fine choice. Fine choice. I'm going to have a controversial choice.
Oh.
Greg Maddux.
Okay, yeah, you know what? He did win a Cy Young with you guys, so that's...
Yep, and he came back. That's the important part.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be able to name a Cubs player.
Chris Bryant.
Okay. So someone help me out, and I should be able to remember this. There's a pitcher, he might still be with you guys because he was there in the 2015 season. Starts with an A, like Arrieta. Okay. And so he pitched the game. I was there on the last game of the season in 2015 against the Pirates, I think. And he pitched almost a perfect game through like 8 innings. And then I think he either got like a double or a home run. I should really be able to remember this better. But so I was very impressed by him, but not impressed to memorize his name.
Yeah, I was a kid in the 90s, and I was really into the big home run hitters, and so I loved Sammy Sosa. And then, like many young baseball fans of my generation, I got a little disillusioned with him and the other home run hitters after. I mean, he had the cork bat, didn't he?
He did have the cork bat. As it turns out, the one time I had the chance to see the Cubs in Toronto, Sammy Sosa was not there because he was under suspension for his cork bat.
Oh. Yeah, but I mean, he was like, even though there were the performance-enhancing drugs and whatever other tricks, it was still entertaining. So, and it's there's only so much you can do, like, to enhance your hand-eye coordination. I mean, you can, I guess, juice up and be able to hit a ball 600 feet, but you can't, I guess, juice up your eyes so you can hit it. Yeah, hit a 98-mile-an-hour curveball. So it's still impressive, even if it's a little less so.
I was going to say, sorry, is the Lisa who tweeted in, is that Grandfather Alden?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that my favorite Cubs player is whoever her favorite Cubs player is.
Way to play to the crowd.
Yes, play to the crowd. Perfect. From Michael Thomas on the YouTube chat, hey, a live panel on my birthday. So happy birthday, Michael.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So one question that I get to ask of everyone now that everyone's here, and I believe you all had the opportunity at least once being there between a Wednesday and a Thursday taping. You guys had the opportunity to partake in lunch at the Sony Commissary on Sony's dime. So my question for you guys, what did you guys have for lunch?
We'll let the champion start.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. Sandwich, and I remember they told us, like, sandwiches are going to take a while. There was, like, I think a pastrami sandwich or a steak sandwich that sounded really good, and I was famished at the time. So like, oh, I'm going to wait for that. And I guess it helped. It moved my brain. Not well enough to remember exactly what kind of sandwich it was, but.
Go ahead.
Does Pat remember what she had 2 years ago?
Of course, Pat remembers what she had 2 years ago. It was a salad because I didn't want to overdo a salad with a little turkey on top for some protein. As I recall, at our lunch table, we had somebody who was trying to play saboteur. Somebody bought a whole bunch of candy and was trying to sugar everybody up. But
wouldn't that have been a contestant coordinator?
No, I actually think it was another contestant, but I can't remember who it would have been. Although, you know, maybe it was. Maybe.
Because I feel like on panel before, someone's mentioned that Karina has bought a massive handful of candies and said, hey, take one.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
And Natasha.
First of all, before I forget, speaking of birthdays, I would like to wish Jason a happy early birthday. His birthday is tomorrow.
Okay.
And then I had salad because, of course, everybody recommends salad so that it's not too heavy. But I also had an amazing corn chowder. Corn chowder is my favorite, and when I saw it, I literally did like a double take, and I went back. And then, like, you know, the dweeb that I am, I sat with a huge napkin over my dress because I'm famous for spilling chowder all over myself, but I didn't spill anything. So I was camera ready.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I was pretty terrified of the salad dressing myself. I was like, oh, no.
So I will join Natasha in, yes, absolutely. Happy birthday tomorrow, Jason. And hope it's a good one. Okay, so do you remember any of your specific post-game chats, Peter, with Alex? Or Natasha, do you remember your post-game chat with Alex? I see you're shaking your head.
Yeah, so I was just talking about this with a friend today, and he was asking me what I talked about, and I said, I have no idea. You could pay me $1 million, I wouldn't remember what I said or what he said. I'm sure it was perfectly polite, probably had something to do with the game. I have no idea. Yeah.
It's interesting because I remember a couple of the post-game chats were about the game, and then there was one, I think, I remember now the post-game chat for Monday's game. I remember we were talking about the Final Jeopardy question about the airlines, because like the Final Jeopardy question was about airlines, and so we just chatted about different airlines, like it was just friends or acquaintances. So and then there was another time where I think he was talking roofing or something, like bit construction. He apparently, Alex likes to do house construction, like do construction work on his house, and so sometimes like he'll chat about the game, and sometimes it'll just be about random things, like whatever is in his mind. So it's not at all serious. I don't think any of the chats were like, so like, how do you feel? It wasn't. He definitely doesn't grill you after that.
Yeah.
Clearly, he saves that for me. No, I'm joking. I try not to grill people too much here on #Jeopardy Live Panel.
I do remember, just in case this is, that, so he answers questions, audience questions, during the commercial breaks, and a little girl yelled out and said, what Hogwarts house would you be sorted into? And at first he responded, he said, I'm sorry, like, I don't read the books, I don't know the movies, so I don't know what the houses are. And the girl said, I think you would be Ravenclaw. And he's like, okay. And then he did something, and then he turned back and he said, whatever one Harry Potter is, that's me. Yeah.
10 points for Gryffindor.
Yeah.
He is. I love watching him interact with the audience because he's such a natural.
Yeah.
So, have you had the opportunity to watch many of the games since you've taped? And to that end, how different is it watching Jeopardy now that you've been a contestant?
I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
So I actually have not watched too many games. I got back into it about a week before, like the week of my episode, or like the week before my episode, just because, it was really hard losing. I had very high hopes for myself, and so I kind of took like a hiatus from Jeopardy for a little while. But I will say I am now so much more compassionate. I mean, I was always pretty compassionate, but with the picture clues, I'm 1,000% compassionate because now I know how far away it is. And just the process goes so fast. Like, we're all trying so hard. So if I ever see a tweet that says these people aren't trying, that will get me really angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been my post Jeopardy experience.
Yeah, and it's sort of like you can kind of feel, you can kind of get some insight into their mind, like how they're feeling. Like it's almost like more personal watching it. Like even if it's not someone like you from your week, like you'll see the people up there, and you'll relate to them, you'll empathize with them. If they lose a bunch of money on a daily double, like it hurts you to see that, because I mean you don't want that to happen to anyone. That's it's a lot more personal now.
Yeah.
So now, Natasha, if I'm not mistaken, I think you work with somebody who was on the show last season. So what sort of tips did you get from your coworker before you went on?
So her name is Mara Apostle. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry, Mara. And yeah, she was on last January 2016, and she won. So, and I've been playing pub trivia with her. In fact, this Tuesday was the first Tuesday that I was in town that she wasn't here to play with because she's getting married this week. So happy wedding week, and a happy birthday and a happy wedding. But she gave so many tips. She was so helpful, especially at the end. She spent, I think, 3 solid lunch days with me because she just came up, helping me with wagering, because her husband is a math professor, and also she has a very good math head on her shoulders, and I'm just terrible with it. And that was an aspect of the game that I had never really paid much attention to. Studying, I always knew that it was something that I was going to have to get to, but I had been putting it off. So she was so helpful, and I want to thank her for that.
If I can chime in, I would have to say, if you want to study anything between getting the call and taping, it's the wagering. It's wagering. Like on the week I was on before my show, there was a contestant who lost because she wagered too little, even though she got final Jeopardy right. And I had a friend who was also like a math whiz. Shout out to Jesse. He down into this long algorithm, which I tried to memorize as much as I could, and it's very important wagering correctly, especially, because most of the time it's not like a runaway, and most of the time, it's something that you don't realize is important, and then when you see the game being played, you realize wagering is sort of all important, because Final Jeopardy, that's just one question. You might it might be something or something you have no idea about. So, and the category doesn't necessarily help you.
Yeah, 1960s Europe or whatever.
Yeah. But I thought it would be
I think the most important wagering advice, though, is bet on yourself to win. It's so not the difference between second place and third place is $1,000. Not worth it to try and stave that off. If you have a chance to win the game, bet on yourself to win.
Yeah,
that's certainly excellent advice for sure. Now, I asked Peter this earlier, but and Pat chimed in, but Natasha, I'd like to ask you, was there anything were there any categories or clues that you saw kind of waiting in the bullpen that you wish had been in your game?
Oh, so let me. I'm sure there were. Because was one of your finals, was it called Shakespeare? Yeah, so when Shakespeare came up, I'm like, because I studied Shakespeare hard. And when that clue came up, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that. Well, I didn't know it like 100% because that wasn't something I had studied, but like I quickly figured it out, and it's the only one that made sense. Honestly, I'd have to go back again and watch, like, everything is such a blur. I'm just going to keep repeating myself and say everything's such a blur. But I know in my game, when playwrights came up, I was like, yes, because playwrights was another thing that I had really hit hard. And so if I had been able to buzz in, I would have been able to get all 5 because, yeah, I had really studied playwrights.
Which kind of also explains why you went, playwrights for 1200 to open.
I will say that my proudest get was the Beckett one for 2000 because whatever the clue was, I didn't know that. But I got the, like, will anyone rid me of this meddlesome playwright? And I had studied that quote hard for like Henry II, Thomas of Becket. So when that came up, I'm like, it has to be Beckett. So yeah, I was proud of that.
That wound up being timely at your air date, not at your taping, though, because it came up in the James Comey hearing.
Yes, you're right. But no,
But of course, that was You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no, Jeopardy is filmed live.
Right.
We were just out there last week.
So, did you do anything else while you were in the LA area for taping?
So I showed up like 3 days early, but one of the days was spent, so my mother came with me early and then the rest of my family came just for the taping. And she decided that all of my outfits were wrong. So
Thanks,
one
Mom.
of the days was spent in the JCPenney that's really close to the hotel. I went to the, what was it called? LACMA, the LA County Museum of Art. That was really good. And I annoyed my mother because I went to every painting and like stared at it.
I remember. You told me about that before the show.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, I remember that. And I remember
Intimidation factor.
I lived in LA for like 5 years and I never went to LACMA. Like, oh god.
It's a good museum. I recommend it.
Like I know, and I feel so dumb for not going there. It's like the proverbial Manhattanite who's never been to the Statue of Liberty. It's like when you live there, you're like, oh, I can go there another time. And then eventually, like, you move away and you're like, oh, gosh, regret.
Yep.
And then I tried to get a lot of sleep and I tried to eat well and, I tried to do all those things. So whoever's watching, do the opposite of that because maybe
I have to follow up on the outfits thing. Did you succumb to your mom's wishes or did you wear something you had originally brought?
No, anyone who knows my mother, you succumb to her wishes.
Okay.
So, yeah. But they were all good choices. So
that's good.
Yeah, I've gotten some compliments on the outfit that I.
Cool. Oh, speaking of compliments, can you speak about your handwriting? Because frankly, I mean, I would say, if I had an award for best handwriting of the season, you would certainly be up for it.
Oh, thank you. Maybe that should be what are they called? The Andy Awards?
I clearly that needs to be one of the categories next year. Best handwriting.
So yeah, I've always been a little bit vain about my signature. And so when I knew that I was going to be on the show, more than wagering, I practiced my, that's not a good strategy. But I actually, I had a very elaborate N that I had practiced throughout the day because, they let us do a couple of practices on the board. And by the third one, they looked at it and they said, actually, your N looks too much like an L, which I don't know how that's possible. And so they made me change it. I'm like, you can't make me change this. I've been practicing this for a month. But I rolled with it. I made it. So, yeah.
The day of my taping, I had to write my name, I think, 3 times because it's only 3 letters and it was so small.
Oh, yeah.
So I had sort of the opposite experience.
I wanted to make sure that whatever it looked like, it didn't look terrible. And I like to think it was passable. But
that's not going to win you the Andy Award.
I don't think I'm going to win the Andy Award for handwriting.
I'm a lock.
Yeah.
Now someone's just going to need to remind me in January when I put those together. Clearly, I need to set some sort of a calendar notification in my phone.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have lots of screenshots so you have good comparisons.
I actually have to be honest, I actually do have every episode sitting on a hard drive, so I'm good there. So,
all right.
You backed it up, right?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember what Liz Fritz's Jeopardy signature looked like, but I've seen all her like Jeopardy stuff, and she has gorgeous handwriting too. So I'm coming for you, Liz. Yeah.
I miss the Jeopardy stuff. Yeah.
I think I suspect both of you think she needs to get back on that at some point.
Yeah. I think she got a job where she's working during live Jeopardy now. Jeopardy anymore. I don't know that for sure, but I think that's...
Okay. Well, as it turns out, I believe my sort of paper, my note paper is devoid of questions now, so it's now time where I open it up to you guys. Do you have any questions for anyone else on the panel, or even for me?
You knew Wheelhouse, right?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Fair enough. How often do you think it's used in professional context?
In any
context. T-ball.
I've seen it. Well, I've seen it used significantly in the trivia context.
No, okay, no, I'm sorry, but I meant the baseball, like, so how the clue defined it.
I have seen it in baseball contexts. I thought, ironically enough, on Thursday night, Bruce Bochy used it in his post-game interview.
I'm glad I didn't catch that.
I think announcers use it with some regularity.
Yeah, but
what they use?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So where I hear that word constantly is the Food Network. So I watch a lot of shows on the Food Network, and whenever it's like Chopped or another cooking competition, they say, "Oh, this is in my wheelhouse." So I wouldn't have gotten that because at this point I associate wheelhouse with cooking and not with baseball.
Well, and to me, I associate it kind of like Andy was just about to say with trivia, because so are we all members of Learned League? I don't know. I haven't looked you guys up, but on Learned League, so I'm part of a Learned League chat room, of course, after we all submit. And, someone will say, oh, 6 for 6, I got a 9-6 today because it was a wheelhouse day for me. And for the past 3 months when this chat group has been saying this and they say wheelhouse, I'm like, it like makes me cringe. And I haven't been able to tell them why.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. But they're allowed to keep saying, because it's a very common word. I use it all the time. I never knew what its roots were. I didn't know that it came from baseball.
But yeah, I knew that the trivia meaning of wheelhouse came from baseball. I didn't know that root.
Why didn't you tell me, Andy? Couldn't have passed that along.
He was screaming at the TV. You didn't hear it?
Yeah, I was. I was kind of. As it turns out, I learned the ship meaning of wheelhouse when Alex Jacob had his triple silver on it back when he was on. I only knew it as a baseball term, didn't realize it was a ship term. Learned the ship term that day. And then, of course, I was, I'm usually in a position where I have, or at least last week, I was because I was staying with some people who were who watch Jeopardy later than I normally do. So for the sake of the site to get the results up, I had somebody send me a chart of all of the results so I could still play the clues. And so I'd known that you had missed both of your daily doubles, but I had no idea as to what the context was. And I saw the picture of the wheelhouse. I saw what Alex was saying. As he's saying it, my heart sank completely, knowing what was about to happen. And
that's when you yelled at the TV and tried to turn back time?
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Actually, I believe the first words out of my mouth when I saw it was, "Oh my God, wheelhouse."
Oh yeah. It's so funny because I play with Alex all the time. I stare at that phrase all the time. Wheelhouse is my wheelhouse. I just never knew its origins. Yeah.
You know, that honestly, that certainly happens, and you're not the first person to have. Have you read Prisoner of Trebekistan?
I have. I love it. Shout out to Bob Harris.
Yep.
I used his mnemonic method to help me study.
Well, you're familiar with, I had a similar feeling with your daily double when I read his story about 100 pages into Prisoner of Trebekistan. He talks about how much Jabberwocky means to his father, and I had knowing how his story ends when I was reading Prisoner of Trebekistan, I had that same feeling reading that point when he was talking about his father, and it was it was certainly not, it just goes to show that these things can happen. And
exactly, they can and they do, because when you're under the lights and when you can get an answer that you would have no idea in other contexts and vice versa. So
you probably knew Wheelhouse 10 seconds before it came out.
Yeah.
And 20 minutes later you would have too. It's just in that moment, like.
Yep.
But copper, I had no idea. I might have mentioned this to Andy already, but in my mind, I was playing with lead or mercury. Those were the only two metals that I knew, if mercury's a metal, that caused a brain disorder. I didn't know copper. I've never heard that in my life. So yeah, those daily doubles were really not. They were not in my wheelhouse.
So, any other questions at this point? I'm going to take a look at the hashtag. Actually, I am going to use this one because after that last discussion, I feel like this panel needs just a little bit of levity.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry. Yeah, you shouldn't have invited a loser onto the show if you wanted. Yeah.
Two losers.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one also from @Grandfather Alden, also known as Lisa. If the panelists could steal a smooch from any celebrity of their choice, who would they choose?
I have to give this some thought. So.
Go ahead.
Only one?
No, I'm gonna think.
All I'm gonna say is that I'm the moderator. I'm not a panelist. I don't have to answer this one.
Pat, did you say that you had an answer? Oh, okay. Go
I
ahead.
said only one. I can only choose one. George Clooney.
I'm also going to go with George Clooney. He is breathtaking, and I hope my wife doesn't mind me saying that, but he's a real hunk.
I guess I'll go with Amal Clooney just so she doesn't feel left out.
So lots of love for the Clooney's tonight on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. Okay, that you know what? Any other questions at this point?
I don't think so.
Okay,
No.
yeah, I'd say that's a good note to finish things up on tonight. So, I'd like to thank you guys for joining on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. Also, to everyone who tuned in tonight. Next week we're taping on Wednesday again at 9:05 Eastern. I believe that is July 5th. I already have a couple of people scheduled for the panel. You'll get to talk to Lisa Evans as well as Brandon Randall. So both of them hopefully will be able to join us on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel next week. So thank you guys again for joining me, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. Let me just get the credits together. Also remember that you can subscribe to the audio simulcast on iTunes or Google Play Music, or there's also the Patreon, patreon.com/The Jeopardy Fan, if you'd like to contribute to the website or the podcast at all. So thank you very much, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.